Hello all, we've got an awful lot to get through, so I'll crack in. Global manufacturing PMIs. Emerging markets in red and the advanced markets in yellow. The United States at the top in yellow, in the positive zone, doing better than anybody else. Go right down to the bottom and we've got Italy, Taiwan, Spain and Greece doing the worst, most negative. But the yellow bars sticking negative are mostly yellow. Most of the developed world is negative. This shows up in the JP Morgan All Industry PMI Global. This is all the information from everything all put into this one chart. And the PMI is sticking down there at just over 50. And the global GDP on the right hand scale is now down just over 1.5. You can see that's the light grey line. It's come from about 5 down to 1.5. Those jumps in GDP on the right scale are very large, and 1.5 is not good enough for the global GDP. European Services PMI. Now what normally happens here is on the indicators we get sentiment, and which goes first, and then manufacturing goes second and services goes third on a downward trail. So we expect services to hold up more than anything, especially in the advanced nations. Germany, France and the UK clustering around the 50 mark, but in the periphery of Europe, Ireland, Italy and Spain, it's only Ireland that's holding up, but Ireland is a strange case at the moment. But the thing to notice on this chart is that Italy is down at 45, which is recession territory, and Spain has absolutely plunged down through 40 and is in the high 30s, which is very bad news for Spain. And I'll quickly note in here that Moody's says the Spanish regions are set to miss their deficit targets. The mystic nose was right, and the information from the Treasury in Spain could have been a lie. Rating distribution of sovereign issuers on selected dates is interesting, by Alia, who's put this together from Moody's. Reading across in blue, 1983, 75% of the world's sovereigns were AAA. Reading across, you can see that they just go down and down and down, and now it's only 15% of the world's sovereigns are AAA. And if S&P have got anything to do it, that number will be going down again soon. Read down 83 again, down to the bottom, and we can see 100% of sovereigns were investment grade in 1983. Now it's down to 61% are investment grade. No sovereigns were junk grade. That speculative grade is junk bonds. None of them were junk bonds in 83, and now 39% of sovereigns are junk bonds, with only 61% being speculative, being investment grade, and only 15% of those being AAA. Europe, France, Germany agreed on new rules. France and Germany have reached a comprehensive agreement on new fiscal rules for the beleaguered Eurozone, as a package of measures designed to save the single currency begins to take shape. The proposals include a commitment not to force private sector bondholders to take losses, as they had to do in the case of Greece, and this was welcomed by the financial markets. Reading this, an analogy came to the mystic mind, which was something like the Merkozy dressed as a clown runs onto some stage or other and distributes money to the audience, clink, 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 and the audience applaud. But the Merkozy clown thinks that the audience are applauding the Merkozy clown outfit, and Merkozy is very clever for wearing such a wonderful clown outfit. Really, it's the distribution of money, in that the proposals include a commitment not to force private sector bondholders to take losses. Sentiment and a question. We can see these are EU sentiment indicators: Greece, Portugal, Spain and Italy. Greece, we can imagine it's the bottom because they're getting the hell kicked out of them. The next one, you can see the shape of its plunge, is Portugal. So what's going to happen when Portugal defaults? If Merkozy allows it to default, who is going to take the hits? Not the people, not the bondholders. Somebody else. I wonder who that somebody else is. Felix Salmon. A slice of lime in the soda, the Eurozone's terrible mistake. The FT is reporting today that the new fiscal rules for the euro include a commitment not to force private sector bondholders to take losses on any future Eurozone bailouts. If this principle really does get enshrined into some new treaty, it will be one of the most fiscally insane derelictions of statesmanship the world has seen, but it certainly helps explain the short-term rally that we saw today in Italian government debt. And Felix goes on, and at the end of his article we get, the immediate result of this plan is that everybody will rush into the highest yielding bonds in Europe, which is exactly what seems to have happened today. The other effect of the plan, however, is that every country in Europe is now effectively guaranteeing everyone else's debt, which is more than sufficient to explain why S&P is minded to downgrade every country in Europe, up to and including Germany. In order for markets to work, lenders need to suffer when they make bad lending decisions. If the Europeans didn't learn from Ireland, couldn't they at least learn from the Fed's much criticised decision to pay off all AIG creditors at 100 cents on the dollar? Blanket guarantees at par are pretty much always a really bad idea, and this one, if it comes to pass, will be the biggest one yet. It won't end well. Clowns. Now, I could have stopped there, but I'm going to push on with this because what I'm trying to push is that these are the problems that these clowns, unfortunate for them, have to dance around. Basel rules face change with no risk sovereign debt a major focus. Regulators may diminish the central role of government bonds in planned banking rules designed to make the financial system safer. The Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, which coordinates regulations for 27 countries, may let banks use equities and more corporate debt, in addition to cash and sovereign bonds, to satisfy new short-term liquidity standards, said people with direct knowledge of the plans who requested to be anonymous. The move could reduce demand for European government securities, making it harder for nations on the brink of insolvency to fund themselves. It's all very complicated. And this is what's happening behind the scenes that doesn't make it complicated. It makes it positively dangerous. These are the shrinking universe of safe assets in prime reserve currencies, the dollar and the euro. Now, this is what banks and the shadow banking system deal with. They really deal with day in, day out. This is what is their exchange. On the left, to give an idea of numbers, we're talking, when it goes 15,000, that's 15 trillion, because those thousands are billions. So this is $15 trillion worth in 2001. At the height, it was about $20 trillion worth of safe assets that they could have on their books at no capital requirement and post as collateral very easily if collateral was ever asked. Those numbers would have gone up to about 25 trillion if those things were still considered safe, but they are not. They are now down to just over $10 trillion. The banks are running out of safe assets. The world is running out of safe assets. And those stripy ones at the top are France, Germany and others, and those could be, if they get reduced from their AAA status, that is more safe assets that the banks don't have to swap around with each other. And that is crucial, absolutely crucial, and that is what is crippling the entire finance system behind the scenes. The German government is doing the legal work to reinstate the Sofin bank rescue fund as soon as possible and could even reactivate it before Christmas. They know that their banks are in serious trouble. Commerzbank I've highlighted there, but there are more. Holland, the Wall Street Journal has done an article on Holland's debt, and you can see gross debt income ratios. Netherlands sticks out much more than even Portugal and the rest. Huge debt, and that is handleable for the Dutch as long as everything goes swimmingly well. Things are not going to go swimmingly well. Interesting article. Over in Australia, the PMIs are out, and I've just cut this one piece out. You can see that generally they're all in the 40s, the readings, which is not good. But selling prices in October 2011 was in the 50s at 50.9, but selling prices has come down to 44. So that seems to mean that prices are going down. And wages were 58 and now are over 60, and wages are going up. The Australian economy is in a very strange state. It really doesn't know whether to go up, down or do somersaults at the moment. But the world will soon sort it out. Getting towards the end, the United Kingdom, debt to GDP, Paul Krugman writing in the New York Times. That's the shape of it going back to 1830, the UK debt to GDP, world wars in there, starting after beating up on the French, and you've got then the First and Second World War making those spikes, and as Paulie says, that uptick at the end, you'll see it if you squint, is what's driving the Cameron government's insistence on slashing spending in a liquidity trap, and Paulie don't think it's a good idea. Let's finish with the Telegraph. And Bombardier plant in Derby could be saved by state train aid. And if you read the article and the comments, you find that this is such a difficult thing. We've got China that runs its economy. You've got Germany, which is halfway between. It does a lot of helping its industry out. France helps as well. The UK wants to let the market do things, but is now being forced into dabbling. And Bombardier is a Canadian outfit that builds trains in the UK, but people don't want the Bombardier trains. They want things like Siemens trains that seem to work an awful lot better. So what do you do as a government? Do you let the contracts for the UK trains go to foreign competitors, or is it better to give money to Canadian firms to build trains in the United Kingdom? They're clowns, but they've got awful big problems to clown around with. We're best out of it. Bye.